as we've now flipped into 2024, a lot of great shit on the horizon. Let's look back at the very best shit that I heard this year. Now, before I get into the list, I will absolutely miss an album or two that you were like, fuck, how is that not in the list? Here's the thing. If I didn't hear the whole album, it's not included, because I feel like it would be bullshit to shoehorn something in just because it's the hot shit or whatever. For example, Sleep Token is not on my list. Not because it wasn't good. It's the hottest shit in the world right now in terms of rock music. So there will be things missed. These are the best albums I heard this year. So, with that being said, let's get it started, shall we? We have an album by the pride of Gothenburg, Sweden. It's Avatar with Dance Devil Dance. These guys, you want to talk about energy. I can't even understand. I don't know if they have like a fucking central source that they plug their cocks into or something to give them this power, but these dudes never stop. And Avatar's deal is that they consider themselves like a traveling metal circus, and they're all about, bringing fun and joy and dancing and shit like that back to metal. I love their vocalist. What's his name? Johannes Eckerstrom. This motherfucker can wail on a really high level. So yeah, I've followed Avatar for a bit over the last few albums, and I initially really loved what they were doing with their last album, Avatar Country. They tried to do like a funny album. It's one of my pet peeves, dude. I do not like when metal tries to be funny. It's not, it doesn't lend itself. Anyways, Avatar Country to me was a misstep. I didn't fucking like it at all. And in fact, I liked it so little that when the new album came out, I was kind of, like iffy on if I was even going to bother. I'm glad I did, because on this album, they drop a lot of the gimmick. Avatar, one of those bands, they paint the lead singer, Johannes, he paints his face. The rest of the band, they all wear like circusy, like ringleader type regalia. At least they were doing something different. I feel like in America and in the UK, a lot of the metal it's cookie cutter. It all sounds the same. Like, I don't know what everybody's trying to do, but it all ends up becoming one big globulous mass of bullshit.
They smell like a pile of bullshit!
Stylistically, this shit is super high energy, super aggressive. That's kind of like the stated purpose of that band. I know I've heard those guys say that they are not into like metal where it could be played sitting down. They think you should be jumping around, getting crazy and shit like that. They dropped all the comedy. This album is fucking way more serious, way more ass kicking. And yeah, I'm a big fan of it. Y'all should check it out. Dance Devil Dance by Avatar. Next, we're going to go to some British metal. It's Tesseract with The War of Being. And even though, if you listen to the channel, oftentimes I shit on the glossy, modern style of metal, this kind of took those tropes and just did them better than everybody else, to the point that like you had to respect it and you had to say, fuck, that's pretty good. And that's what Tesseract did to me. They pummeled me into respecting them. At first, when I started listening to it, I almost felt like, oh God, it's like metal for gamers. Shit that you would listen to while you're playing Elder Scroll. A lot of modern metal, as I said before, there's almost like a cookie cutter way about it. And most newer metal songs out of America and the UK, they follow this thing where like you open with some sort of ambient, techno-y sort of thing, and then you drop your fucking main riff, and it's real heavy, and then you get into the quiet singing, then you get into the screaming. Normally, I don't buy any of that shit. I don't like that shit. But as I said, these motherfuckers do it so well that you cannot help but jam. There's a lot of groove to it. That's why, like, one of my buddies referred to it as progressive. And I said, well, shit, is it really? It's got too much groove. Like when I think of progressive, I think of sort of like lifeless, show off, jack off, super fast playing and shitty lyrics and, classic progressive metal shit. And that's not the case here. And it's progressive in a different way. Like the rhythms are really interesting. There are time shifts. As I said, it's done at a level that is so spectacular that you cannot help but love it. You will be jamming. And like I said, you put this motherfucker on while you're playing like some God of War, something where you're like fucking up trolls, where you've got like a sword and shit. You play one of those types of games, you put on Tesseract, you get some of that shit, some of that sativa, and you just kick ass for hours and hours. It's a great time. Tesseract, the War of Being. Now, we're getting here into the last three. These final three are in order. I loved these albums in the order that I am presenting them now. Everything before here, it's a mishmash. It's all really good. There's ups, there's downs, whatever. These three albums I really fucking loved. So let's get into it. I'm going to start off representing Boston, Massachusetts. It's Gozu with Remedy. I've looked around at some other people's best of shit on the year, and this is one album that I have not seen any fucking where. So I don't know if maybe I'm like the only asshole who knows about this, but this was absolutely one of my favorite albums of the year. This shit, like, I love Southern shit. I love stoner rock. And this fucking checks every box. It's not just stoner rock. Lead singer / guitarist Mark Gaffney. This motherfucker is dropping obese riffs. Holy shit, these riffs are huge. And then on top of it, this dude sounds like Pepper Keenan from Corrosion of Conformity. Amazing singing voice, amazing riffage, huge groove. I have no idea how these guys aren't bigger than what the fuck they are. This band, it is a stoner band at its core. So it does remind me of like a fucking badass weed strain. You know how like nowadays if you go to buy weed, you don't just buy weed, you fucking get like the whole life story of the fucking strain that you're getting. This is like, somebody will be like, dude, it's like you take fucking gelato, lemonade, whatever the fuck, and you cross it. Dude, you love Gary Payton? Dude, what if you take Gary Payton, you cross it with this motherfucker, now you got Scottie Pippen. And that's sort of what Gozu is. Gozu, there's several parents that have been mixed, and this is the strain that comes from it. I heard a lot of Alice in Chains style harmonies. As I said, lots of Corrosion and Conformity. This is, if you're somebody who's into COC, you will like this band. Unless you think they're a ripoff of COC, which is possible. The guys are older. I think this is probably one of the reasons why maybe they haven't gotten over so much. The guys are older. They're not a bunch of fucking Adonises and shit like that. They're just like middle-aged guys like kicking ass on such a high level. I recommend this album for every motherfucker, unless you got no soul, in which case you won't give a fuck about this. People, there's a lot of jamming in this. I'm trying to look for negatives. There's a lot of jamming. There's big open jam sessions. If you're somebody who's into like snappier shit, then you'll probably roll your eyes at this. I get a lot of different stuff out of this band. Gozu, Remedy, you absolutely gotta go check that shit out. I'm telling you. Which leads us to our next album, the number 2, the second best album I heard all year long. This album comes to us from an Australian band. It's King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard with Petro Dragonic Apocalypse, or Dawn of Eternal Night, an annihilation of planet Earth, and the beginning of merciless damnation. That's a hell of a name for a fucking album. But holy shit, man. King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard are so weird. The first time I had ever heard them, there was a song they did called Planet B off a previous album that would, like, I heard it and I said, holy shit, this is like fucking Black Sabbath reincarnated. Holy fuck, who is this? And so I start looking up all this King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard stuff. These guys put out a billion albums. They're all completely different genres. I mean, there's shit that's like jazz, there's folk, and they just happen to make a couple of metal albums that just happen to be completely fucking awesome.
I mean, everything's worth doing. Worth doing right.
It's really hard to believe that a band that could bring such heavy shit could also at the same time be responsible for such kind of quirky shit. This album is retro, very retro. If you're somebody who's into modern metal, you're going to say, oh, this is for fucking nerds or whatever. The creativity by these dudes is so off the chart. You cannot help but be in awe of these motherfuckers. I believe they put out like 5 fucking albums in a year before. They play long shows and they put every show up on their website for full fucking download, along with art if you want to do bootlegs and shit. So the band has had several members over the years, but the one constant has been Stu McKenzie, who just does all kinds of shit. I mean, this motherfucker plays sitar, he plays clarinet, saxophone, keyboards, flute, bass guitar, percussion, and guitars on top of being the vocalist. And like I said, it reminds me very much of like Black Sabbath era metal, but like you cross it with more like occulty type shit. I get very like, you know, early D&D nerd type shit from this. That's the vibes that it's putting out there. And when you listen to it, it's got such a it's like simultaneously retro and then futuristic. It's brilliant what they've done here. You know, with Gozu, we refer to being like a stoner band. Dude, if you're a fucking stoner, this will blow your fucking mind out.
That's some heavy shit, man.
If you're a D&D nerd, you'll love it. The songs, I will tell you, are long. They're long, but they all, the way they're composed, there's different movements to it and shit like that. So you almost don't get lulled in like it is a super long song. Yeah, these guys are superior artists. Like, honestly, I can't listen to a lot of their other shit, but when these motherfuckers get together to do a metal album, it is gonna be a thing. You better go check that motherfucker out if you haven't heard it yet. It's King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard with Petro-Dragonic Apocalypse, or Dawn of Eternal Night, an annihilation of planet Earth and beginning of merciless damnation. Having gone through all of those are all great fucking albums, but this album is absolutely my favorite album of the year. It's Code Orange, The Above. Code Orange, you know, they started off as like a hardcore ass band. They have a cult ass following from those early hardcore albums when they went by the name Code Orange Kids. To kind of look at this band and the entirety of their career, back in the day, by the time you heard a band, let's say, for example, thinking back to the 90s, let's say Soundgarden. By the time you had heard Soundgarden, they had already put out a couple of independent records that you probably never fucking heard, and they were polished and sharpened by being on the road and shit like that. So by the time you saw them, you were seeing a finished product. Whereas today, people release everything they ever fucking do. And by the time you get to the point that you're becoming famous, you've already got like 5-6 albums out. And you see that with Code Orange. And you, as a result, you've been able to see their evolution and what they've become. And it's so impressive how far they've come and how much potential they have going forward. They have two vocalists here, but it's not a situation where you have the screamer and the singer or whatever. They both scream and sing. Jamie Morgan is like a straight up fucking vocalist. On the early albums, I think he would lean too hard on the screaming and shit like that. This dude has a good fucking voice. And on this album, you can start to hear it in parts. He's doing a lot of different shit with himself vocally. And I think the entire band is better as a result. Reba Myers, I've talked about her in the past. To me, I think she's one of the most talented motherfuckers out there right now. You can tell she's worked on her voice because from album to album, it gets better and better and better. And at this point, her voice is fucking gorgeous. She holds the guitars down like a motherfucker. Code Orange are one of those bands that, like, I point to them as an example of how backing tracks are done correctly. A lot of recent Code Orange albums, like, they have these really weird transitions in between the songs. The albums almost are, every song is connected and it's telling a story and all that shit. And then within every song, there are weird like audio drops or little clips or shit like that. And I believe it's my boy Shade Balderos. He's a multi-instrumentalist. He's like one of the fucking MVPs for this band, because when you see them live, he's doing backing vocals, he's doing keyboards, but he does the programming, the electronic percussion. So all those drops, all those backing clips, it's not shit that like the singers need to sing their songs. It's shit that is adding to the song and linking the songs and shit like that. A lot of people in this argument of, oh, backing tracks or no backing tracks, they lump everything together and they see, you know, for example, Motley Crue using backing tracks to cover up the fact that they can neither sing nor play their instruments anymore. They see that as the same thing as Code Orange using, backing tracks to link their songs, or having little programmed electronic bits that play with the song. You know, everyone is playing their instruments. All the singers are singing. Everybody is doing their part. And my boy Shade is in here dropping in all the fucking backing bits. And you see him live and it's just tight like dick skin.
Ooh, and it's tighter than dick skin.
And this album, more so even than any of their previous albums, it's gone in places that I've just never heard them go. There's a huge grunge element here. You go to like, you know, Taking Shape or something like that. Fucking Billy Corgan's on that fucking song. Show us who you are. So it kind of shows you which way they're going. There's some slower jams, but then there's like weird shit where there's like mellow parts intercut with like super hardcore shit. It really is an assault on your senses. You know, one thing that makes Code Orange kind of a throwback band for me, even though if you listen to them, that shit is like futuristic sounding almost. As I've mentioned, I'm a child of the 90s, so of course I'm one of these motherfuckers that fetishizes all the 90s things. One thing that made the 90s bands fucking great is that nobody sounded like each other. You know what I'm saying? Like if you were a fan of metal, if you were listening to Maynard James Keenan and Tool, or you were listening to, you know, Rob Zombie fronting White Zombie, or you were listening to, you know, Phil Anselmo front Pantera, or any of the big metal bands of the time. I mean, you can run off forever. Fucking Soundgarden, Alice in Chains, Corrosion of Conformity, Rage Against the Machine. None of those dudes sound alike. Everyone was completely fucking different. And when I look at Code Orange, I try to say like, okay, who does Reba Meyer remind me of? And there's fucking nobody. Who else is like her? I mean, in terms of her voice, at this point, like I got to go almost back to like a Chrissy Hind or a Pat Benatar. She's got like a husky voice, but it's like, it's pointed. Her voice is like a contradiction of itself. It's so goddamn beautiful. And Jamie Morgan and really the entire band, You got to give them all a shout out. Shade Balderosa, John Goldman, Dominic Landolina, and Max Portnoy. Yes, that's Max Portnoy, son of Dream Theater drummer Mike Portnoy. The band is super intense, super tight, super badass. This album is kick ass from top to bottom. There is not one fucking stinker on here. If I had to point out specific songs, Take Shape is a badass song. Mirror, I Fly is a kick-ass song. Splinter the Soul, Grooming My Replacement, Snapshot, But a Dream is a kick-ass jam. It's pretty much a totally badass fucking album. And Code Orange has been consistently putting out super high-end product, and they need to be recognized for being some of the baddest motherfuckers around today. Music is no longer just audio. It's a full immersive experience, and that's what Code Orange brings to the fucking place. Like when this album was first coming out, they put out a YouTube video. Oh, it was so funny. It was called it was like, Code Orange slams modern critics or something. Very clickbaity, very YouTube title. And the thumbnail was like Reba, like she was, how every fucking YouTube thumbnail is the face of the fucking idiot who's talking and then, whatever to try to hook you in. And it was one of those. And when you go and click the video, it's just like torture. It's just like a long video of torture. And then at the end, they had a new song. They dropped all this shit. And the videos are all sort of linked together. Amazing stuff. Amazing stuff. Code Orange, The Above, absolutely the baddest ass shit that I heard all 2023. They're out on tour now. As I said, if they come to your town, baby, you got to get down because it's going to be a good ass time. Although their shows are fucking intense. You will get sweaty. You may have to defend yourself. I don't know. It depends on how small the room is. Code Orange, go check that shit out. Anyways, moving on.